My dear viewers, beginning today is the official Alliteration Gaming Patreon and channel members. Throughout my Patreon, we've got quite a few tiers you can check out in order to gain special perks and even commission videos that you'd like to see me upload onto the channel. Every tier includes a shout out on my supporter card at the beginning of all of my videos, along with the benefits of the tier itself. Following that, you can now also join the Alliteration Nation by becoming a channel member on the YouTube side of things. Pledging your subscription here as a member of the channel is going to grant you the same shout out on my supporter card as all the Patreon tiers do, as well as access to the members only channel on my Discord. You'll gain a member badge that will level up as you stay subscribed and access to my exclusive emotes when I stream on YouTube. If you're interested in checking out the Patreon, I'm going to have the link in the description and in the pinned comment down below, as well as the link to my Discord should you want to join that as well. And if you want to become a channel member, the big, beautiful join button is front and center on my homepage right here. And if you do decide to support the channel in any way whatsoever, know that I am unimaginably grateful, and I can't wait to provide you with even more top-notch content at my trademark top speed. Now, let's get on to the video. Good evening, my dear viewers. Welcome to another Alliteration Gaming video. My name's Levi, and today I've got another one of our lovely patrons, Kratorius the Abyss Walker. Literally the most metal name of all time. But for the purpose of this video, I think Zeth is okay.
Yo, what's up? That's perfectly fine.
Hell yeah. So we are talking today about Stain 2. Now, I'm very excited about this because this is a character that quite obviously I have a ton of experience with and a lot of love for, but we're going to be going down a pretty new avenue. Obviously, I've messed with a lot of void weapon builds in my time across many characters. Right now, for him, I'm really hot on the evil weapons. Order is kind of the symbol on both Stains that I've always sort of ignored because Order is not particularly famous for having a ton of weapons. So it was always kind of an avenue that I drifted away from, but you are here to prove me wrong. So go ahead and kind of give me a bit of an intro about what this deck's about.
All right. So when Set 3 first came out and I was going through the cards, I got introduced to Flex Your Might, and I went through each of the symbols and sorted out what has the highest base damage amongst these symbols. Now, all has Detroit Smash, Good has things like Wind Up Punch and some other moves that are actually pretty decent. The one that finally drew me to it was in Order. I got access to Brandish Steel, which is base 7.
That's pretty unmatched. I mean, what, Blitz Rush, right? Who plays Blitz Rush in their decks?
Yes, it's Blitz Rush or Brandish Steel. And on top of that, right behind it was Tape Swing. So
yeah, six is definitely up there.
The original build, I went with Dropkick Slicer and some of the other weapons to get them to all work together. And I also worked with Reciprocal Extend to actually try to make Slicer 2-2. What ended up happening is that someone suggested that I try Tape Swing over Slicer, and I have not looked back ever since.
Okay. Interesting. So this is just the best Flex Your Might deck ever, right? We're going to commit the heck out of our rival. We got tons of minor stun across his attacks. Stain's going to commit and freeze something. We've got the conflict of ideologies, the shock treatments rolling in. This is just screw your board and I'm going to draw a million cards.
Like, this whole deck is just entirely suppressive fire. Flex Your Might has that extra bit of text on it with things like Jolt and Laceration combo acting as Jolt number 2. Right. And being able to say, commit a foundation, commit freeze a foundation, and then commit another foundation is fantastic.
Yeah, and that's every time we hit. So every jolt, every laceration, every tape toss, and every tape swing, because these are both throws. We've got a ton of moves that just like hit you no matter what. Blood Moon's going to hit you probably for half no matter what, unless you just got like a million mid blocks, I guess. Yeah, that's a whole lot of committal pressure. I'm definitely digging the idea of the deck so far. This is very, very, very cool. And I know you kind of said that this is a pretty played and tested list, and we're just kind of looking for those last minor, maximization, optimization type of details.
Absolutely. As of currently, I've clocked about 35 hours with this deck, and that's split between gold fishing, playing matches at my locals, playing matches on and off with my friends, and I have tested virtually every possible card under Void to get this to its most refined state possible, and I just need another fresh perspective to ground me with how much I've put into the deck so far.
Yeah, that makes total sense to me, man. So I guess the first place I want to talk about is the attacks. I've got a couple ones in here. Now, first off, dropkick slicer, right? That's kind of like the big elephant in the room is, are we trying to slicer it up? Because like order, not a ton of weapons. This is an order weapon, and of course is just like an amazing card in general. You said you messed around with it before between Recipro Extend. That's actually super cool because this definitely is a kick. I did not think about that. But is there any reason that you kind of drew away from that? Like, because like obviously like Extend with it is pretty cute, but it also could exist as its own standalone thing in the deck. Or are you just not really interested without like that full package?
So what happened for me in my testing is that I would have those concerns on turn 1 builds where I try to go for my 1 and 0 spams and I'd only be able to build 2.
Yeah.
And usually in those instances, especially going second, those games I ended up losing strictly on only being able to get out 2 to 3 foundations as opposed to building out to say 4 to 5.
I totally agree.
The difference between Tape Swing's 2-check and Dropkick Slicer's 1-check, from my experience, has mattered tons.
Yeah,
Being able to get out that extra foundation to help squeeze out one more attack. The other advantage that Tape Swing has over Slicer also is that even if you can't completely block it,
right,
it will do damage.
So it just kind of flows with our deck a little more, and like obviously we're not going to play both, right? We're not going to play Slicer and Tape Swing. So yeah, if I had to pick, I can definitely see why you're much more hot on the Tape Swing. I think it synergizes with what you want to do a lot more. And yeah, man, that 1-check is rough. As a 7 hand size character, I've only got 20 health. If I build like 2 on turn 1, I'm probably just gonna die.
Absolutely,
I'm just gonna die, man.
The other layer that comes with this deck is as you look at Brandish Steel, as you look at Tape Swing, as you look at Fruits of Our Labor, in the case the game ever goes to deadlock, you will die. It's guaranteed 4 damage, guaranteed 8 to 10 damage off of 2 momentum from Tape Swing. The deck at some point is going to kill you.
That's super true. That's super true. I always forget about Brandish Steel's Deadlock. That's like such a real thing, and once again, just synergizes so much more with our deck as a whole. So much guaranteed damage, the guaranteed Flex Your Might procs. I love it. Yeah, I'm definitely sold on the Tape Swing over the Slicer. I think it makes a lot more sense with what our deck is trying to do. Pearson Descent, I actually just have in here as like if you end up needing to fix block zones, because one of the things about this deck right now is these like zones are like actually pretty perfect. 18, 23, 19, that's like fine. So if we end up messing around with things, this is just like an emergency low block. But the real attack I want to talk about in here is Blood Moon Rending. We all know that I love me some Blood Moon Rending. We got 1 whole Blood Moon Rending in this deck. Do you think there's room for any more?
I would like to be able to include additional Blood Moon Rending. For myself, my concern has been Face Shield.
Okay.
And this deck, in the case that Face Shield ever is to come out against it, my locals currently hasn't really played a lot of Earth, Water, or Life, so I haven't really seen it. And part of it is that I think this deck is preying upon that fact, that there is no one running around with Face Shield. So my concern is that if I open up with something like Laceration, I open up with something like Brandish Steel to actually kind of get the weapon part started, if it gets Face Shielded and all I have left is my Blood Moon Rending, then it's not able to utilize that really important combo enhance that lets you rip into their hand.
It is definitely not great. I am a big combo player, I'm a big weapon player. Always hate to see a Face Shield coming on board. So I can understand the fear of that for sure. If your local meta is like not really toying around with them that much, I think it's definitely worth looking into. And then maybe if you do start running into a lot, it can become more of like a sideboard type of thing. You can side out of it, or you can side into it if you know you're not fighting a Face Shield thing. It's really something that just to think about. If your local meta is not like clogging your card pool up a lot, I think Blood Moon is just nuts.
I think I'd also like your thoughts on Indiscriminate Shock 1.3 volts. The reason that I offer it is that with Flex Your Might, the potential to essentially stun 3, because you get the commit stun, you get the stun 1, and then in the case it makes contact or does half damage, that's also another commit. On top of the fact that it scales damage based off of our opponent's committed foundations.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely like what our deck is trying to do, right? I think, honestly, if you wanted to be like a little more committed to that, I think you could cut the Slashing Whirlwind and the 1 Blood Moon for just like 2 1.3s as like your super late game bombs and just see how those go. I actually just think that like even if you just wanted to one of 1.3 over Whirlwind, I think that's just like a better one of still at that point. Because it's just like conditionless, right? It's just conditionless, like 1 million damage that they always have to think about the second that they see it checked. I think 2 1.3s is like a fantastic place to start in place of those attacks. It's also a couple low blocks, which again, I mean, our deck's not like pressed on zones at all, but it's always a nice backup.
Is with my attack line being, especially if I'm looking for a finishing turn, Jolt into Slashing Whirlwind has netted me games.
That's fair.
That's guaranteeing fair. That damage and then getting the stun and the extra commit off with Flexure Might, and then forming with Stain for 3 extra speed, so that way Whirlwind becomes an 8 mid as opposed to a 5. I've even considered Setup Strike to be able to Setup Strike into Form Weapon for +6 speed for Slashing Whirlwind, and then here's an 11 mid for 14.
That is pretty big. That is pretty big. The fact that Stain can form our Slashing Whirlwind is pretty cool. I mean, as far as momentum, like we have a ton of attacks that like do damage no matter what, even though Stain's gonna like technically lose us 1 momentum a turn if that one's hitting. I think we could still have enough to make it work, and it's definitely worth messing around with. Just because of the fact that we can make it so much more threatening, because again, you know, it's a weapon. But I think the 1.3 just being conditionless is really
so
nice.
Much better.
Yeah, I mean, it's that early game pressure, right? Like turn 2, okay, bro, throw a Slashing Whirlwind at me. You know, I'm not gonna have to play around that at all. But 1.3 in the deck, turn 2, yeah, man. Once I like commit like 3, like I'm gonna form as Stain, right? Then like hit you and then go like, you know, Flex Your Might, Stain, freeze, stun from like whatever I played, shock treatment, and then now suddenly, boom, you have like 6 committed things, and this is just unblockable 8,000 damage.
Yeah, and being able to Jolt Laceration indiscriminate sounds really unfair.
Yeah, no, that sounds crazy. Like, here's all of these attacks that are going to hit you no matter what. You can block them if you want. They're still hitting you. They're still going to proc Stain. They're still going to proc Flex Your Might. And then you have to make sure that you can block that 1.3 at the end, too. I think I'm pretty sold on this as, like, our alternative bomb. Like, between this and Brandish Steel, which is really, really cool, too, right? Because we have a high and a low now. So they have to decide,
so
like,
tight.
Okay, yeah, what big damage move am I going to try to take into account here on the end?
And in the case we haven't formed yet with Stain, in the case that they dealt with indiscriminate, well, here's the 6 high for 7.
Yeah, I think honestly, like that, the fact that we can form on the Brandish Steel or send the 1.3, like those are both play routes that I like a lot more than try to throw like a Whirlwind at them.
No, this is so much better now.
Yeah, I like this a lot. And I think like Blood Moon is really cool in this deck, but as cool as it is, I like that our lines are a little more free now. Like we can go like, you know, like tape toss or tape swing into Jolt, into our bomb, right? You know, we don't have to worry about putting that weapon in the middle of our string, because sometimes, you know, I mean, we get to see like 8 cards, right? But sometimes that's just not how things play out.
Right.
So I like this as a little more consistent lineup that offers some nice alternative bombs going on here.
I'm so down. That looks so sweet.
I love it. All right, let's talk about some foundations, man. So looking at this foundation lineup, I think I can kind of see where you were testing Dropkick Slicer at first, because there's like only spams in here.
I actually do have to give a shout out to Tim Keefe. He was actually doing Iron Chef Challenge as a part of his channel. And he made mention that there's a lot of people that, especially coming in My Hero, they're just jamming all the 0s and 1s and calling it good. And he brought up a good point, and it's something that I started reflecting on even before coming on here, is why play a 0 when I can play a 2 that actually has like text?
Right. I mean, it's all about finding that balance, right? Making sure that you can see like a couple 2s and then like a couple 1s and a 0 on turn 1, so you can get those like real sweet builds.
Oh, absolutely.
Some of the 0s in this game are just weird though, because like requesting assistance, this is better than like half the 2s in the game.
So requesting assistance with conflict ideologies on an opponent that had to commit out on their last turn is so punishing.
It's so brutal, man. That's extremely brutal. So I definitely like a lot of our spams. So what I really want to talk about with the foundations here is there's a couple like, I think like order staples that I don't see in here, and there's a couple tech pieces that I want to go about. So I have tape right here just as like a, hey, if our block zones end up getting like a little messed up, this is something that we can reference, but for now they're still super duper fine. Passing the torch though. Why no passing the torch?
So my struggle for passing the torch came down to, like you talked about before, that balance between 2 diffs and my spam. And I was trying to see like where I could see about cutting in my spam line just enough that I could actually see about including a couple of copies.
So straight up, you have, of your 36 foundations, you've got 10 non-spams. So you have like a ton of leeway to balance those out a little more. I mean, your spams are nice, but like straight up, like passing the torch could just replace call in for backup. Like flip to draw once or commit to draw every single turn. That passing torch just seems way better here. It's the same bad block mod, so you're not really losing a lot there. I think passing torch is just probably straight up better there. You could also like requesting with passing, and that's just like super duper messed up because requesting is a messed up card.
Very, very true.
So that's like the immediate change that I'm really down for if you are.
So we're thinking on just like completely replacing calling and
Full
just making
swap.
all of them passing? Full swap.
I think you can full swap it, and it's only going to improve your deck.
I'm down to try it.
Yeah, because I think that you have a lot of leeway here to go ahead and put some more non-spams in the deck. From here on out, we're going to get a little more critical with things. How do you feel about Creepy Realization?
I had it in my sideboard strictly for the Tokuyami matchup.
Yeah, I think it's also something that has danced in and out of my Evil Stain deck, and it's a really nice power card. But the stats do come up. The forecheck and the +3 mid block, they do come up more often than you'd think. As nice as a power card as it is, it doesn't really like synergize with our strategy at all. I'm down for it to just be a sideboard card in this build, but I just wanted to hear your thoughts on it.
I had it as like a 2 to 3 of in my side, and kind of like what you're already touching on is that the forecheck, I've had concerns about that, especially with the deck not really looking to leeway much on the damage, as opposed to my opponent so committed out that just hitting them with 3 or 4 attacks is more than usually enough to get there.
Yeah, I was thinking of it more so as a defensive piece than anything, but I don't think our deck that like, struggles that hard with blocking. It's just kind of one of those cards that it's like, oh, guys, this card is just busted. Why isn't it in your deck? Well, it's a little more nuanced than that. Sideboard, though, for sure.
Absolutely. The other thing I found cool, like for Stain as a defensive measure, is as you're committing and freezing foundations, you're controlling how many resources your opponent has available on their turn. So by being able to commit freeze, they're passing the torch, or being able to freeze down a defensive piece they thought they didn't need, you're putting a lot of pressure on your opponent to be really choosy about how they commit their cards. On top of the fact, using Jolt to selectively commit something on their turn, it acts as like a pseudo breaker.
Yeah, you have so much defensive committal slash freeze, however you want to think about it in this deck. It's extremely gnarly. Like conflict is just always gonna pop off. Shock treatment is great backup when we generate so much momentum. Stain himself, Jolt. Yeah, I mean we just have so many ways to make sure their board stays down. Engine Trouble is playable on either turn. Oh god, Engine Trouble. I love it.
That card's sick.
This is like my favorite card. This is one of my favorite cards, dude. I love Engine Trouble. I'm so glad that this card is in your deck.
I originally had it as a 4 of. I trimmed down on it so that way I can actually have like that more slimmer deck style.
Yeah,
and
I like the 60 cards. I don't want to mess with your deck count very much at all. Like 19 attacks, 60 cards. I like this, so I don't want to, like push that up too. I really like your numbers. Your numbers are very great here. How do you feel about Unexpected Hero?
I have tried to find space for this card. My big issue with it is, like, again, it's like messing with numbers and things like that. And as much as I would really like to be able to get that dream of Unexpected Hero with Heroic Lineage to just fully negate an attack,
right?
I think in the time that I've played with focusing on targeted committal and managing my opponent's resources on their turn, that the -3 speed hasn't really come up a lot, and the +3 damage, especially now since I have access to indiscriminate stock, I don't think I'm going to need it.
Yeah, I agree. It's got like some cool synergies. Again, Unexpected with Lineage is very cool. Obviously, it's very good on Tape Swing because we don't care about the speed. It has cool plays for sure, but the fact that we can't really proc the response at all, at least ourselves anyway, is pretty unattractive. And if we were going to try and fit in another low block, there's actually one that I want to talk about a lot more, and that's Proud Scion. Have you played with this card at all?
So the thing that's held me back the most about Proud Scion is that it is a 3-check. However, in the case that we are able to find a spot for it, I think it would be so cool during my opponent's turn to just go, hey, no, that doesn't work.
Proud Scion. So when I first played Void Eraser, when set 3 first came out, oh my god, this was like my favorite card in the deck. I teched it as a 1-of, I drew it one game, realized how nuts it was, made it a 2-of, and then like 5 games later made it a 4-of. This card's like actually crazy good. It hits so many things. You are hitting Specialist of Sound, you're hitting Heroic Lineage, you're hitting Think Fast, you hit Pull No Punches. Like, there are so many extremely relevant targets for this that it's actually kind of, you can hit basic training with this. It's so good.
Oh, that's pretty dope.
Yeah. This card's insane.
The other one I wanted to bounce off of you, and I was kind of debating myself because I had it in my side, was Noble Participation and a 1 to 2 of in place of Hero Killer at times, because being able to, during my opponent's turn, turn off Breaker, or during my opponent's turn as a defensive piece to turn off Stun, has been kind of playing around in my head a little bit.
It is pretty nice. I think that's definitely a local meta call. If like everyone's just running around with Ice Storm decks, yeah, all day. I would reduce Breaker 2 all day. That's definitely when that card is at its best. But I think that's just more of a local thing, right? Like, are you more worried about like that tech, or are you more worried about like hero killers like Insane Deadlock or like selective removal, right? If your rival is playing a lot of like, decks with really high value foundations, right? Passing the Torches, Excited for Bloods. If there's a lot of life decks running around, Rescue Completed, a lot of water decks, Rescue Completed, Release, if you're running into a lot of decks playing those cards, I think Hero Killer is way better. If your local is much more like Breaker focused, yeah, I think Noble would be much better in that slot.
Hero Killer taking Void Eraser's villains defeated twice felt so good.
It's very good. And I mean, Spooky, right? That's like the best card.
Oh, yeah.
In every Eraserhead deck, Spooky's like the best card in the freaking game. Yeah, being able to take that is just like nuts strong. So I mean, again, just depends on what you're fighting, right? If you're fighting those decks where Hero Killer is going to provide much more value, that's where you want to keep it. Otherwise, I could definitely see playing around with Noble if you're just getting Breakered a lot.
Fair enough.
So I really want to put Proud Scion into this deck.
I do too.
So another reason I'm a little less worried about that is like, yeah, it's a 3-diff and we do have 2 checks in our deck. The cool thing is though, if we're going second, we can jam this as our first one, and then if we happen to check that 2, like that 1% chance, right? We can just commit our character. It's fine, Our character is super fine being committed on the turn 2 build. So it only really hinders us if we open it on like going first turn 1 and we're like, do I want to test God right now, But I don't think we have any trouble building this for the most part. So I don't want to mess around with our block zones too much. So I'm going to start looking at our spams that I'm not crazy about. Are you super attached to this 12 zeros number here?
Not really. If I'm able to find like more high value cards, like removing like the Rooftop Vantage and maybe like hitting a gotcha or 2, I think I'd be cool.
That's what I was thinking. I think we cut a Rooftop, we bring gotcha down to 2, and then we bring in 2 of these bad boys, and then we put the other 2 in the sideboard, because that's what heroes do.
I'm into it. I'm so into it.
Dude, if you ever fight a Cero player, man, and you have 4 Proud Scions in your deck, they cry. They never get to play Think Fast. It's awful. They cry so much, man. They cry so much. So I love that. I'm super glad that Proud Scion is here. I have a couple other 3-diffs in here, but since we got Proud Scion in, I'm probably less worried about those. Sticky Balls is like a cute power card. Defrosting has cool interactions with like our throws, and Award the Victor kind of lets us like double up on our stain response in some ways, like letting us like redraw like tape swings and stuff like that too is very cool. But I'm not like super crazy about those interactions, and I don't really want to stuff a ton more 3-diffs in our deck.
I think having the 2 for Proud Scion and then siding in the others as I deem necessary, I think is the correct call.
I agree. I think that's super fine. So these were just kind of brought in as like, hey, these are just really good 3-diffs on the order symbol. Let's at least bring them up. Our block zone stayed fine, so I'm not even really worried about tape, to be honest. As good as that card is, I don't think that it's even really worth talking about. I think our other cards are just a little better. Like, tapes could come in place of like, I don't know, like Fruits of Our Labors, or maybe like a Self-Sacrifice or a Bonds, but like why wouldn't we just play cards that already even out our block zones and do other things than a card that only exists to account for not having certain zones at certain times, right?
And that was my like tertiary goal with putting Stain together, is that I saw that Order was on the mid struggle bus in terms of attacks as well as blocks, and there were a lot of decks that leverage tape. So I thought to myself, what is a way that I'm able to have appropriate block zones while not having to go on crutch cards like tape?
Right.
And again, some of the choices are more focused toward keeping those balanced block zones, and I understand why people would go for tape and to secure like a mid block.
Sure, yeah.
From my experience back in Standard during Mortal Kombat, it was better to just balance out with some block zones and accept that some of your cards aren't always going to be great.
Yeah.
Than to just invest into a single block zone and get blown out because you're having to face Ken all high attacks or something.
Yeah, I mean, our mid blocks aren't even very good. What am I going to tape and then block with this +3 mid, or this +3 mid, or this +3 mid, or is that our only, or this +3 mid? There's so many of them, man. Screw tape, bro. So before we talk about assets, I want to kind of go over our foundations just a little bit more. Right now, let's see, what do we got? We got 4, 3, 6, 9, 13. We got 15 non-spams and then 21 spams. So that's still a pretty good ratio. Is there anything you feel lacking the foundations? Like certain things could be at like higher copies, because I'm not gonna lie, I kind of feel like, I don't know, just looking at the whole theme of this deck, I feel like I really want conflict at 4, low-key.
I've tested conflict at 4.
Is it like too much?
That's at least from what I've discovered. Once I got 2 down, I was generally good.
Yeah.
And if I got that third one, that would be fantastic. But more times than not, when it comes to Jolt Laceration being my 2 guaranteed attacks, and then freezing 2 foundations after that, I wanted room for things like shock treatment. I wanted room for things like passing the torch.
Right.
So that way I'd still be able to get additional cards with text while being able to keep pressuring my opponent's foundations.
Sure. Yeah. I like our zeros a lot. 10 zeros in a 7-hander with 60-ish cards has been like a perfect ratio for me in playing a lot of decks. Are there any of like the ones that you're not crazy into? I'm not sure if I'm really sold on like Fruits of Our Labor. I think this card's like okay. But I think like Fruits of Our Labor could totally be like, you know, maybe our 4th conflict, maybe even a 3rd Ice Gliding. I think Ice Gliding's insane. Ice Gliding's like super good. Some of the best feed reduction around.
And Ice Gliding has helped provide like that thin veil of defense where the difference between me half blocking and getting to my turn and dying has been insurmountable. Yeah. I mainly had Fruits of the Labor in there for its really good deadlock. Given that we're on the tape swing plan, the guaranteed 4 damage off of Brandish Steel, and some of our other cards are really good into deadlock, like especially Proud Scion.
Yeah, now we got Scion. Scion's deadlock is amazing. I think since we have so many deadlocks, actually we can be a little less worried about that, right? Like that's the other way to think about that, right?
Yeah. So, I'm down.
Yeah, I'm down to like let's get these fruits out of here. Let's put a 3rd Ice out of here. Let's put a 4th conflict in so that we see those 2 that we want to see super often.
Absolutely.
Right? So I like that a lot. Otherwise, I think I'm pretty good on where we're at. Shock Treatment's a perfect one of. Lineage is really great, but I think it's okay at 3 copies. Hero Killer is the same, and then I think we have 3 of these really good ones here each, and I like that a lot. So now, lastly, I want to peep into assets a little bit, and I want to talk about the best card in the entire game, and that's Class Lineup.
That card is so good.
So when I played Stain 2, the first time I played it, I was like, this is really cute. I'm gonna sideboard this card, and then I played in a local tournament. I played 5 rounds with my Evil Stain 2 deck, and I would play every single round. I played game 1. And then I went, there's a lot of Death, Evil, or Void cards in your deck. I guess I'll side this in. Round 2, I played game 1. There's a lot of Death, Evil, Void cards, and I think I'll side this in. And that happened every single round that I was like, I think I'm just going to main one of these. And then I played a couple games, saw it, and I was like, yeah, I'm just going to main like 3 of these. I'm maining 3 right now, and I think it's like actually insane. I think this card is stupendously good, and I think there should be at least 2 inside of our main deck. How do you feel about that opinion?
I'd be down for 2 because I do see Eraserhead a lot. I do see
this card wrecks Eraser. This card like demolishes Eraser. You hit every foundation in his deck. There's so many. So like the water decks You get to hit Startling Witch Studies and Graceful Maneuvers because they have Death. You also get to hit that. You also get to hit those 2 cards in the Chaos decks. Death is Death is not played a lot, but it's on a lot of cards randomly.
It's accidentally on a lot of cards.
Yeah, you get to hit Excited for Blood, right? You get to hit every single good Void Foundation in the game, which are like in every deck, right? You hit Heroic Lineages. There's just so many targets that this card is almost never dead. Like, can you give me a symbol that does not play cards that this hits? Because there really isn't one when you think about it.
Well, and considering that I think it touches Chivalrous as well as Learning the Standard because they're under Void.
Learning the Standards, yes. Chivalrous, no, is not under Void. Chivalrous is all Chaos Earth. So you don't get to hit Chivalrous, sadly.
Okay, dang.
But that's okay. But that's okay. Chivalrous is like terrible against us because we're just gonna commit all of your good things, not flip them. Yeah, no, it's fantastic. So I want 2 of these inside the main deck like ASAP. I don't know if we want to take anything out for them. That might be where we could kind of maybe reach into like some of these numbers a little bit. Our block zones are still pretty much perfect, even with just jamming this in. So if there's like other mid blocks we would maybe want to cut, I could foresee maybe like Hero Killer at a 2 of.
I could see that, especially since from my experience, Hero Killer's been best going first. Yeah. And then in the case that I go into game 2 going second, I can side those out.
Yeah, when it comes to Hero Killer, I either want to see this card turn 1 to inhibit their builds, or I just have to see it at some point by like turn 10 for the deadlock. In between, I'm not super worried about seeing it. So I think it's pretty much fine on like that lever there. And then if we really want to stay at 60 cards, maybe like Bonds of Friendship could become a 2 of.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, either that or Self-Sacrifice. It could really be either or. And that still keeps our block zones incredibly beautiful. We got 16, 26, 18. I love that.
I'm cool losing the Hero Killer and the Bonds of Friendship for the 2, especially since Self-Sacrifice has always been a pet card of mine because Season 1 Midoriya is also probably like my favorite.
Art is amazing. You got XRs?
Yeah. Oh no, I need to get XRs for it.
You gotta get them, baby. So I like that our class lineup is in here. Oh, I just took it out. Deku's Notebook, I also included in here as just like a pretty cool like double up of like a Blood Moon Rendition style effect. But I think since we got the class lineups in here, probably not a ton of room for more assets.
There really isn't.
Have you ever played around with this card? I think it's pretty sweet.
It's so cheeky with Tape Swing, and I love it.
It is very, very cute. So I think it's like something to consider maybe. I think there's a world where like, it's like the big thing about class lineup being in our main deck now is we need a fallback plan for it, right? Because when we do happen to fight a deck that doesn't hit anything in, we do need something to side it out for that's just very generic. And so maybe Deku's Notebook could exist in the sideboard for that reason. And I mean, if it doesn't, there's tons of generic things that could be in your sideboard, right? You could have the 3rd Hero Killer, the 4th Heroic Lineage, right? A 2nd Shock Treatment, a 4th Ice Gliding. Tons of just like, you just want a piece that you can bring in, not to bring in, but just to get the class lineup out of the deck, right?
And to fit that out. Okay.
Yeah, so if you want to just maintain assets, a 2 of Deku's Notebook could easily come in because that card is just like never bad, right? There's nothing that card's bad against. And then also I'd probably have more class lineups in the sideboard itself for when it is really good, like probably a 3rd one. And then, you know, more Proud Scions, more Hero Killers for times that it's really good against. Maybe another Shock Treatment for decks that like it's really, you know, that board committal is really important. You could side more Indiscriminates if you wanted as well. That's always a super sick line. People like don't see it very much, and then suddenly there's 4 of them in there, and it's like, I didn't hold that low block, baby. I dared him to have it, but now there's 4 of them in his deck. Whoa. So I think that's super cool too. But otherwise, I really, really like what we've done with this.
Oh, I think at this point, I can say that this is the most refined that I could see this getting to at this point. I can actually say with full confidence now that this is optimized.
Yeah, I'm excited for you to test this and then see if there's any more maximization we can go from there. I'm gonna be honest, I might put this list together myself and play this. I
know it's so cool. Flexure Bite's so good.
I think this list is very, very cool. I like all the board pressure a lot. I love freezing. I love freezing my opponent's stuff. and just like committing on my rival's turn, like Proud Scion and Jolt and Conflict and Flex Your Might, like an Engine Trouble. Oh man, there's just a lot of cool stuff going on with this deck. And I mean, you've sold me, man. This is definitely a really cool alternative way to play Stain.
Thank you so much.
And that's going to be a wrap on this super cool commit and freeze everything in the world Stain 2 deck on the order symbol. Zeth, thanks again for helping me showcase this deck. I think this is really cool, and it's personally something that I'm probably going to sleeve up and try myself. And if you want to get your own build a deck experience just like this, my Patreon is going to be linked down below, where you can check out all of my tiers to commission your own videos directly from me. And also, while you're down there, if you want to leave a comment, leave some feedback for the video, or hit the like or dislike button, I would really appreciate that as well. And if you want to provide some support on a different scale, the join button is also down there, which is going to let you become a channel member and get access to some exclusive perks when I stream on YouTube. Above all else though, thanks so much just for making it to the end of this video. I really appreciate it, and I hope I can see you in the next one.